So, joining me. So, I was just going to say, joining from the secret laboratory somewhere on the east coast of America. Look at that.
Moog Mug.
Moog Mug. Is that a line from Moog, or is it sort of someone's knocked it off?
It might be a line. It might be. It might be on their. They do have merch, you know. So.
Ah, awesome. Mine doesn't say anything at all.
Give me a Sharpie.
Yeah, no. It's a blank page. So what am I going to write on that? Adam, we spoke about 3 months ago. We had a sort of really lovely chat, and it was really gracious of you to give us some time. And you said at the time, "Oh, anytime, sort of give me a shout. I'd love to come back on again." So I thought I'll take you up on that. Last time, obviously, we spoke about Trifecta and the second release of yours with that. How's that gone? Has that gone well? The release?
Yeah, we had a great reaction, and it led to a few. It led to some live, some plans for live gigs. So that's I guess is the headline there, that the reaction was strong enough that we feel we can pursue a live angle, see how that goes. We were invited to the Cruise to the Edge for next year.
Wow, that's going to be so good. It's not something I'd ever be. Well, maybe one day I might be able to do it. I think that opportunity to go on that cruise and see so many bands in such a sort of a concentrated period of time is unbeatable. It's a festival. It is a festival, I guess, isn't it?
It's a festival. Yeah, it's a festival that's floating on the water
in the sunshine.
With the fun part for the musicians is just the hanging out with everybody. You know, that we hanging out with people, old friends, and then artists that we admire that we've never had a chance to meet and stuff like that. That is sort of the schmooze slash hang. That's the this one of the big attractions for me. The gigs in situations like that, similar to a festival, the gigs are kind of rough and ready. Sometimes it's put together. Sometimes there's a lot of issues with the gear, and there's nothing you can do about it. You're on a boat, so you got to make it work. So I think that I think it's more about how can I say, an exposure kind of thing, and being getting in front of a lot of people, and it is a lot of people. It's like 2,000 people or something. I mean, it's amazing. The whole boat holds over 4,000. I think there's like 1,500 staff. Wow. Maybe it's close to 3,000 passengers. I'm not sure, but it's amazing. There's 7 venues. One of them is a 900-seat theater. I mean,
is that the big one?
Yeah. Well, apparently there's cruise ships now that are even bigger than that.
Right.
Apparently they almost double in size every 10 years or something like that. So even though the Cruise to the Edge,
it's like Moore's law for computing, but with cruise ships.
Something like that. And anyway, it's the boat is it's an older boat, so it's medium size now. But there's ones that we saw once, you know, they don't look like boats, they look like the Death Star.
Yeah. They're basically floating hotels, aren't they, really?
It's a floating it's a floating apartment block.
They're huge. I went to on holiday a few years ago to Dubrovnik in Croatia, and wow. That's where they filmed a lot of the Game of Thrones scenes.
They did in Croatia. Oh,
yeah, in King's Landing. I don't know if have you seen the film, the TV show Game of Thrones?
Well, the Game of Thrones, everybody saw that.
Yeah, so
I'm only half-assed watching the new one now.
Yeah, I started it and I said, oh, I don't know if I got the patience or the stamina to do this. So I sort of stopped after 2 or 3 episodes. I must try it again. But anyway, as I say, a lot of that was filmed in Dubrovnik, and I don't know, that's an aside. But just outside of the old town is the harbour, and all these cruise ships were sort of lined up there, one after another, and sort of extra sort of 15,000, 20,000 people come into this poor little city. I mean, obviously they get a lot of money from tourism, but the
Yeah.
population sort of quadruples when these ships arrive.
Right.
It's,
And you can't even see the horizon line anymore, or something
no,
like that.
it's
Like,
very
it
weird,
rolls
very
into
weird.
your whole field of vision. It's like,
Yeah.
yeah. Anyway, all that aside, I'm looking forward to doing that, and we're doing a warm-up gig in England. I don't know how close you are to a venue called. Oh, we're not announcing it yet. Sorry, we're going
Okay.
to announce it
No,
soon.
I'm close.
There's
I'm
going to be a
close.
warm-up. There's going to be a warm-up gig in England
Okay.
before that.
Okay. Well, so that's gone well. You've obviously now Stephen's announced about doing a tour next year for his latest album. I managed to get tickets for that, but not in the UK because they'd all gone. But I'm going to Paris, so I'll be seeing the show in Paris when you play over there.
Okay. Oh, I didn't know. I didn't know the UK was already sold out. That's interesting.
Well, it certainly was on Ticketmaster when we first, and when they all did the sort of the pre-sales for the fans. So it went nuts. Everyone was trying to get tickets, and the whole site was crashing. And I sort of gave up. So okay, well, I'm not going to get to see this. Then
I didn't know.
I thought,
Okay.
but I think maybe you can still get tickets now. But I panicked and said, okay, let's go abroad. Let's go somewhere else. So yeah, we can make a weekend of it. Go to Paris.
Right.
Yeah, but that brings me very nicely onto this. You remember this album?
Okay.
So Hand.Cannot.Erase is, I think, my favorite, one of my top 5 favorite albums of all time ever. It's just absolutely sensational record, and no small part because of your playing, your keyboard parts on there, and especially as a solo on a track called Regret 9, which you play on the Moog, which is just astonishing. I don't want to put you too much on the spot about it, but what was the circumstances around recording that? How did that all come about? Was the so the album itself, was it all sort of fully fleshed out when you guys all got together? Did Stephen have just bare bones of songs, and you made them sort of the beasts that they then became? Or was it he very much knew exactly what he wanted and where it wanted to be, and you sort of fulfilled his wishes, as it were?
I think it's a little bit closer to the latter.
Right.
He's very clear about what he wants, and his demos almost sound like the finished album.
Right.
That said, I'm always trying to find ways to work some little other bits in here and there. Of course, the soloing aspect of it, I have, he's let me blow a number of solos over the years in different contexts, and that is always improvisation and coming from me. But yeah, and there's parts and sounds and things that I'll add, but I would have to say that like 85% of it, 90% of it is all Stephen, and it's fleshing it out.
Yeah. When you came to play the solo for, I'll call it Regret 9, but it's sort of tagged on, isn't it, completely with Home Invasion. Are they sort of, I always think of it as one track. I can't really separate the two because it's one bleeds into the next.
Yeah, it's when they perform live, it's one long shot too.
Yeah. So yeah, I guess sort of coming at that solo, it took a while to sort of come up with what you wanted to do with it, or did you sort of just play it on the fly? So, oh wow, that worked well. Sort of like first take.
No, not quite first take. Here, let me think. Well, the bulk of the album was recorded at George Martin's Air Studios in London, which is a lovely, beautiful recording studio, and it also had classic instruments there. I think that there's an organ solo I play on the first song on 3 Years Older. That supposedly Rick Wakeman used that same Hammond to play some of the solos on the Yes albums. you know, George Martin. I mean, there's his sense of history in the whole place. It's an old church.
Yeah.
You know, this is a post Beatles establishment, et cetera, et cetera. So it was a great place, and most of the record was recorded there. But there were a few bits and pieces that were recorded remotely, and the solo was one of them.
Oh,
I
right.
got, yeah, it actually recorded the solo um, before before we went to the studio in England. There was, it was one of the elements that we brought in. He sent me the track, and it had the space there. So I just jumped in and said, okay, let me try a solo there. All you can do is say no.
Yeah.
So I jumped in and played something this along the lines. I kind of worked it. I fixed up a few spots and got an overall layout that I liked. And then I did another take after I'd already had kind of a plan in my mind. I did another take straight down that came out very strong, and I think the bulk of that one is what's on the album. So
Okay.
I kind of worked it out, but then, you know, that's part of the process. You work things out, you get things intellectually, you know, together, and then you let go and just, you know, have at it, and hopefully you get lucky.
Yeah. Because when you then heard it played back in the mix, did it sound different from how you remembered it? Or not remembered it, because obviously you still had the recording, but I'm guessing there'd be a lot of reverb and space on there that wasn't there before, that kind of made it bigger and
Yeah, I guess so. I
yeah.
mean, you know, it has to reverb and space the track. You know, again, the tracks are very, you know, except for there's no drums yet. There's no
Yeah.
live drums, but they're playing along to, you know, his demos is again. I mean, it sounds very complete. I mean, it doesn't sound like dry and bare bones, and then it comes back all glossy and
Okay.
flatter. It's not. It's already got a proper mix in place, and so
Right.
maybe might be tweaks and things like that.
Okay.
But the answer to your question, no, the solo did not sound radically different
No.
when I heard back the final version.
When you play it live, it changes probably every time you play it a little bit, or
Oh, definitely.
yeah.
Yeah, I've got people have complained. I was making it. I was changing it too much. So I
Oh, really?
started. Well, a good trick I found is to start off playing the familiar part and then branch out, so people don't have that. They don't get jarred.
Yeah.
You know, so this, because yeah, I've never had, believe me, being a you know, jazz based musician, I've never had a problem about oh, you got to play the same solo.
Yeah. No.
It's a good problem to have, I guess, because it means a lot of people are attached to what you played. But yeah, anyway,
But it takes a bit of the fun out of it, doesn't it? Because improvisation is kind of what a lot of musicians are about. It's about sort of playing off each other and responding to the room that night and to the energy that's there.
Absolutely. I'm talking about I'll play the first 4 bars or
Yeah.
something as a signature, and then I as you know, it's off to the races. I can't not blow freely on
For
that
sure.
part, but I have
As
to,
long as it all comes back together to just for the last little bit.
yeah. Yeah, I mean, you know, I've gotten, I'll tell you, man, over the years, I've never gotten so much of a positive response for something I played. This is definitely my big, you know, uh, uh, synth solo statement, at least for right now. There was a time when there was lots of people doing similar kinds of playing with a Moog and stuff, and not so much anymore.
No.
Not so much anymore.
No. I find it a bit I don't know, interesting is the right word, but I was just looking on YouTube a few minutes ago before we started up, having a look at Regret 9. There's a lots of stuff in there about Guthrie solo. You've posted a snippet of you doing it at a sound check in Florence on your site.
Right.
But I think it's nice to bring people's focus to actually those 2 solos there, 2 of the absolutely amazing solos, and yours feeding into Guthrie's was just inspired. I think it sounds amazing.
Thanks. Yeah. I've seen a lot of fairly positive comments online, but Guthrie's a guitar player,
Yeah.
and so he's more of a rock star. I don't know.
Or
Is it
it is.
supposed to make me feel good that there's that there's a lot more
No,
comments for Guthrie
no,
than
that wasn't the
is that
that
just for
wasn't the
my
intention whatsoever.
edification or?
No, not at all. Uh, I just think it's there needs to be more focus on what you're doing as well, because there's a lot more to that song than just a guitar solo, and I think that's what I was trying to sort of get across.
Oh, yeah, I didn't know that there was okay. I didn't even know that there was this imbalance in the universe.
Oh, okay.
But all right, yeah. Well, it's there's just for starters, just think about how many guitar players there probably are in the world, and then think about how many keyboard players, maybe a tenth
Yeah,
of whatever the
absolutely.
guitar number
Yeah,
is, you know.
yeah.
Anyway, but still, this solo just to be. I mean, we've been talking in the just to get into some one or two details. It's based on well, not based on it. It's coming out of a Jan Hammer um, style. You know Jan Hammer, of course,
Yeah,
from Mahler
yeah,
Orchestra and all his solo
yeah,
albums and everything.
yeah, yeah.
And he's my hero. And he there's a the way he bends the notes and the way he uses synced oscillators and things like that were very influential for what I was doing there. So I was definitely last thing to say about it is I was definitely trying to carry on the tradition of Jan Hammer with that.
Excellent, excellent. You're just back from California. Was that a holiday or was that work related?
No, mostly visiting family. I don't know if
Yeah.
that's holiday,
Wow,
but
vacation.
yeah. But although there was some business related moments there that were really awesome. Jane and I drove up to Ojai and visited old family friend Bruce Botnick, who was the producer engineer for all the Doors albums. That's how I know him as a family friend.
Mm.
And for he recorded Weather Report, Tony Williams' Lifetime. Um, lots of film scores for Jerry Goldsmith. Anyway, we went up and checked out his Atmos studio, and it was amazing, state of the art studio.
Wow.
He played us some tracks that were just ridiculous sounding, and we introduced him to Jane and I had met Simon Phillips on the boat the last time, and we struck up a sort of chat, and he was really interested in trying to at some point meeting Bruce, because apparently he lives in Ojai as well. So we got Bruce and Simon together, and we all had hung out and had dinner and stuff. It was great. It was a great evening. Beautiful. Ojai's beautiful. So that was just a hang, but
Yeah.
it was great.
Just what you were saying there, talking about dropping in about the Doors, it reminds me of something I was reading a little while ago about your dad and Elektra and Queen. So I hadn't appreciated that Queen
Elektra,
breaking America was down to your
Elektra
dad.
broke Queen.
Yeah.
Yeah, they broke before they broke in England. Elektra
Yeah.
broke them.
That's an amazing story.
Yeah, the Queen movie, they don't have Elektra, of course, does not factor into it. I guess they tried to keep the script simple and make it like record company evil. I'm sorry with the air quotes. I won't do this anymore.
It's all right.
Record company, the evil record company, and there was Michael Myers, I think, playing the record company A&R guy or boss or whatever.
Yeah.
And I think they needed that sort of simplicity for the story, like record company equals bad.
Yeah.
Or going against what you want to do. And unfortunately, my dad was disappointed that Elektra somehow didn't make it into the movie, because whereas they might have had issues with EMI or something, I don't know. They were really pushed big time for Elektra. And yeah, my dad was I mean, you know the story. He got a tape for Trident Studios. Trident Studios sent him a tape. They were, at the time, they were new, excellent recording studio.
Yeah.
A lot of our favorite albums were recorded at Trident. And he said, the studio sounds great, but who's this band? Because I think Queen had sort of a spec deal there, so they had worked on these tracks over a period of time.
Okay.
And they said, oh, they're called Queen, but they're signing with Columbia. And I said, are they? They're signing with Columbia. And my dad said, are they already signed? Well, the deal is done and they're going with Columbia. And my dad said, has the pen touched the paper yet? Well, no. And so my dad jumped on a plane and went over to England and checked out Queen and met with them and insisted that they would, the month that Queen's album was released, Elektra would release no other records. And that's a deal that Columbia couldn't match. You know, a big label, a really huge label couldn't match, and Elektra could. And so they ended up signing with Elektra. And every year, for many years, he got at Christmas time, he would get these beautiful cards from them, long letters, just gushing with thanks and etc. I mean, you know, they loved my dad, and you know, it was a very positive, and those guys are all smart as hell too. Rocket scientists, you know.
Did that start with the first record, or was it 2 or 3 albums in?
That was the first record. That was the first record. Yeah,
right from the beginning.
Proto Metal Prague. Yeah, no, that was it. It was especially King Rat, stuff like that. Ooh, that stuff is kind of rocking, man. But anyway, so let the record show that Elektra broke Queen first, and then they went worldwide.
That's amazing.
I think Elektra, I think Elektra actually signed them for like the States, and EMI was just England and Europe. I think Elektra might have been the rest of the world.
Wow.
I'm not sure.
Okay.
But and then unfortunately, many years later, the whole catalog has been bouncing around from label to label. The whole thing got sold wrongly for a low price to an entity called Hollywood Records, and I'm not, well, apparently I think it's a Disney label. It's a corporate for dumping projects, and then it ended up back on EMI, I think. Anyway, I think it's bounced around still 1 or 2 more times, but unfortunately the catalog is no longer on Elektra.
So what's coming up in the future? You've got the tour next year with Stephen, and you've got a few dates with Trifecta as well. Anything else in the offing?
More immediate futures. I'm doing 5 gigs in Italy at the end of this month and early August. I'm doing a Moog workshop as part of the Veneto Jazz program in Venice, and then I'm doing 4 or 5 trio gigs with some guys I play with over there. Davide Ragazzoni on drums and Stefano Olivato on bass, and he plays harmonica, beautiful harmonica. So it's great to have that in a trio context. So we're playing. I don't have the dates. Do I have? Let me see if I have. I can announce if I can. If I'm not going to take. Don't worry, I'm not going to. See. Give it real quick. Yeah, I'm playing in Trieste on July 24th. I don't know the names of the venues, but if anyone is in Italy, I'm in Trieste on July 24th. There's a jazz festival in the mountains of Veneto on the 27th. I'm playing in a place called Caorle, and 2 gigs near Venice.
Okay.
So that's what's coming up in the immediate future, and then I'm doing some gigs with my wife's project, Jane Get Her Premonition. We're playing 2 progressive rock festivals at the end of, one in North Carolina and one in New Jersey. I'm not exactly sure. I keep track of everything. So that's going on, and I've got a lot of homework to do. I'm trying to finish my own new record. I have a solo record I'm trying to wrap up, and I would like to get that out by the end of the year. It's called Zombie Apocalypse. And
awesome.
It's mostly it's a proper solo album. It's mostly piano and synthesizers,
right?
With a guest percussionist and a guest saxophone player, but mostly synthesizers and keyboard stuff. And so it's something I've been wanting to do something like this for a while. So that's hopefully going to be coming out before the end of the year. Oh, and I'm also releasing, just for fun, a Bandcamp release of my high school band. I
Oh,
had a really killer little prog rock band when I was in high school back in before, you know, BC times, and there's a good recording from that era, and I've been and so me and the guys got together during the pandemic, my old buddies, and we recorded a couple of new songs
yeah.
remotely, and I'm combining it with some tracks I had from before. So I'm releasing a little project on Bandcamp called My High School Band,
Wicked.
and you know, it's mostly for serious Adam fans, but I mean, there's a few things on there that are pretty cool. One thing that we did recently was the Chris Woolley, the vocalist, and I did a nice cover version of the Yes song "Soon the Light," you know, from Relayer.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah. So those are come. There's I think there must be more. I'll be doing a solo piano concert later in the year in New York. But I'll tell you, between Trifecta and everything else, I've got my homework cut out for me. So I'm cutting down on the gigs starting the fall, because I have to basically reinvent the wheel.
Will there be another Trifecta record at some point?
Yeah, we're already talking about ideas for the next one, but I don't know when we're going to record it. It'll probably, which is good. Some time will go by, new ideas will brew. But yes, there is right now. There's definitely a loose plan to do another.
I won't keep you on today because it's early in the morning. You have things to do, but I thought it'd be just nice.
I'm good. You know what? Actually, I should mention I just did a solo synthesizer tour also at the Moog Museum in North Carolina.
I saw some stuff on Facebook about that. Yeah.
Yeah, this place called EMEAP, EMEAPP. They're a special synthesizer. I wouldn't call it a museum. It's like a institution or something. And amazing. They have one of everything that was ever made, and of course they have Keith Emerson's. They managed to snag Keith Emerson's huge modular
machine. Yeah.
Yeah, on the Facebook picture, they really wanted me to use it, so I used it in one or two spots on my little performance, and yeah, you can see the picture of it on Facebook. It's enormous. It's
towering over you, isn't it? It's huge.
Definitely beast, but it does sound. It did sound good. I'll tell you what really blew my mind was the opportunity to play Keith Emerson's Hammond C3. That was the most sweet screaming Hammond I've ever played. Perfect.
Wow.
Anyway, and his 9-foot grand. So I did a solo concert alternating between piano solos and synthesizer Tangerine Dream-ish kind of explorations. And that was sort of the bulk of the show. My wife joined me. Jane sat in with me on a song near the end. But yeah, it was a really interesting project. I think it's the kind of thing that that should be I mean, that was another important component of progressive music back in the 70s was the synthesizer exploration projects like Tangerine Dream and stuff like that.
Yeah, definitely.
There's not so much of that now. When you say electronic now, a lot of people automatically think EDM or something like that.
Yeah, that's a bit of a shame, really, because it's. I mean, obviously, it is the sort of biggest sort of movement for electronic music in the world at the minute is dance music, and it probably has been for a long time. But there's lots of other really interesting things happening around the periphery, and people using electronics in an interesting way. So as you do in prog and in jazz, but also there's some really interesting metal that I would not expect, who use synths and electronics in there to create something you've never heard of. So wow, that's interesting. It's
and yeah,
the
pop world too. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I think it's a really healthy thing that there is still this amazing, or not still, there is amazing music being produced that is not sort of generic and formulaic. People are pushing the boundaries and are thinking creatively and just doing what they want to do rather than what is expected. from if you're trying to do is to make people tap their toes to a 4/4 beat, then you haven't really got very far to go. You're sort of restricted very much. But if you sort of take the shackles off and say, okay, I want to just sort of run with it, flow, let it change, let the tempo change time signatures, change sounds, take drums out altogether for a bit. It just opens up so many opportunities for doing interesting stuff.
Right. Well, I mean, if you're gonna, okay, two points. One is anything that's going to be truly new is probably going to have to be electronic. For starters, because we've pretty much, even though there's more great music to be written, we've exhausted a lot of the sonic possibilities of existing instruments. So that's part. There's also, I mean, even in the mainstream, my son Russell, who's an excellent drummer, has started working in this. I don't know. I wouldn't call it a genre, but it's the universe of alt pop, where there's these amazing electronic producers that are doing some really creative stuff, like 10 Tricks Point Never. Ever heard of these guys?
No.
There's a lot. There's not a lot, but there's a number of these producers / artists / DJs that are doing really far out stuff, and it's being incorporated into some hip hop, hence we get alt pop. So this is on the fringe of the mainstream, but it's also, you know, very experimental and new sounding and interesting.
That's important that it's still done. Yeah. I did. So,
Anyway.
What's your? You've mentioned your wife a few times and playing. What's her band and what is what is it? What is?
I just assumed, yeah, Jane Getter Premonition is the name of her band.
Right.
She's very much influenced by Porcupine Tree and
Okay.
Opeth.
And, right. Okay.
She's a guitar player. She's a guitar player, and
right.
she's really good. Yeah, she's really good, and she her band has great players in it. Gene Lake on drums. Alex Skolnick on guitar, Paul on bass. Anyway, I play keys, and so she's got some really interesting material, and she's been pushing it. She's signed to Esoteric, and she's made 2 records for them, and she's got a current one out now. It's called Division World. And she, as a matter of fact, the only reason I was on the cruise last year was because of her. She got on there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I need to check it out. I've not heard of it before. So
Jane Getter Premonition. Check out the either this record, the 2 most recent records. I would recommend the newest one, Division World, and the one before that called Anomalia.
Okay.
Anomaly. It's anomaly in Latin.
Right.
Anomalia.
Okay. No, that sounds really interesting. I definitely need to check that out.
Yeah. So it's I think you would like it. Vocals. She has guest vocalists on there. I think Randy McStein is on a couple tracks. You know him from wherever knows him now.
From all over the place.
Yeah, he's an old friend for many years, and he sang on my project Truth Decay 5 years ago, and he did a cover. We recorded a cover of an old Elektra song by the band Love. Do you remember Love? Do you know Arthur Lee?
Yeah. They are another one of those sort of iconic bands, aren't they? Love. It's
well, especially in England. In England, they ended up being much more appreciated. There's a sort of reverence for them over there. And I remember that near the end of his life, Arthur Lee went over there and did a number of triumphant kind of concerts. The record Forever Changes did much better, and in the long run did much better in England.
Okay. I don't know why that is. I mean, maybe it's about promotion at the time, or a certain DJ hears it and really pushes it, or it just catches the sort of the zeitgeist at the time, that the population. Oh yes, that's a good sound. And it's weird, isn't it? Because even sort of more modern times, I know Foo Fighters are now huge everywhere, but for a long time they were massive in the UK. but actually not that big in the States where they started off.
Really?
And
Okay.
I thought it was really interesting. When they came, I saw them play here 15 years ago, and there was like a huge stadium. Said, back in the States, we're playing theaters. We couldn't do this. It's so interesting.
That is interesting. I had no idea. Yeah, that's cool. I mean, right. Anyway, love. We're talking about the late '60s there, so it's hard to compare.
Mm.
I think also tastes have changed, and they were a little bit adventurous for back then, and so it wasn't immediate. It wasn't an immediate connection there, but I think that in England, like in other parts of Europe, they listen to music more carefully. I think too. In the States, a lot of it's about consumption.
Adam,
and I got to show you my robot.
Oh,
See?
nice.
Yeah, for the whole interview, you see just the top squiggly lines.
I thought it was like little waves or something.
Yeah, it looked like little wave. No, I want to know this electronic current passing between the
ears.
I don't know if they're ears. Yeah. Anyway, something like that.
Thank you so much for your time today.
Yeah. No. Let's do it again in a couple months. I'm loose, man. Let me consider me a regular.
Yeah, I'd love to do that. And I don't really necessarily want to have any sort of formula for what we do. Just chat and see what's what, and sort of catch up with what's going on in your world.
Okay, yeah, we'll end up in some interesting places.
It always tends to happen.
I should mention one. I've been posting a blog about growing up around Elektra Records. I don't know if you noticed it. It's on Facebook.
Right.
There's 22 installments already, and I take an album. Well, I grew up. I was 8 or 9 years old, 10 years old, when Elektra started becoming a rock label, and I was in love with the label and fans of a lot of the bands. And so I was I don't know, I was paying attention even though I was a kid. And so a lot of these records over the years have stayed with me, and they were very influential in different ways for me when I was younger. So we're talking about, of course, all the Doors albums, but then stuff that's a little bit more off the beaten track, like Atomic Rooster, for example. A group called Show of Hands. I mean, a bunch of other more obscure stuff that people might not be quite as familiar with. And so each week it's an album, this picture of an album cover, and then a little story that some of the stuff is, loosely connected. And some of the stuff I have some very funny little stories to go with it. So depends on the album. But anyway, just thought that might be an interesting thing for you to look at, and it might trigger other
definitely.
ideas to talk about.
Okay, then maybe next time we'll have a sort of a deep dive into that, have a chat about it.
Yeah, deep dive into early Elektra.
Excellent.
Or at least late 60s, early 70s Elektra.
That'd be fantastic. Brilliant.
The golden age. Okay, all right, great, Jim. Nice to chat with you again.
Absolutely.
And I'm gonna go load up one more cup now so I can
so open
get something down around here.
Thank you so much. Good to see you.
Oh, you're welcome, man. All right, cheers. Have a good one.
You too. Bye-bye.
Talk to you soon. Okay, bye.